Yo, today's reading is First Chronicles 7 through 10. A few quick things about this book. It was written by Ezra. The purpose of this book, big picture, was to unify God's people, to trace the Davidic line, and to teach that genuine worship should be at the center of their individual and their national life. Just to kind of help you settle into the timeline, this book actually parallels the latter part of First Samuel and then Second Samuel. So even though the book of First Chronicles sits in your Bible after First Kings and Second Kings, you have to mentally shift back to the events chronologically around the time of Second Samuel. Technically, this picks up at First Samuel 31 into Second Samuel. First Chronicles begins with genealogies of Israel all the way up to chapter 9, and then we're going to pick up at chapter 10, and this begins with Saul's death. Realizing defeat, Saul falls on his own sword. Then Saul's armor bearer falls on his own sword. The Philistines hang Saul's head in the temple of Dagon, verse 10. Dagon was the most important god of the Philistines. He was believed to bring rain and provide harvest, rich harvest. The Philistines built temples to him when they settled in the land of Canaan. In times of drought, people begged Dagon for pity, even to the point of sacrificing children in his temples. And in times of plenty, the temples were used for twisted forms of entertainment. You can see Judges 16 for more on that. But Dagon, like other pagan gods, was not real, and he was completely powerless against the one true God. In verse 11, we see that some valiant men went and took Saul's body and the body of his sons and returned them to Jabesh. The actions of the valiant men who brought back and buried the bodies of King Saul and his sons should encourage us in respect to giving respect to our God-given leaders. David showed respect for Saul's position even though Saul was chasing him to kill him, right? So think about that. And think about that in relation to our current political climate. How easy is it to be critical of those in authority over us, on both sides of the aisle, focusing only on their weaknesses? We cannot excuse sin, but we should respect the position of those in authority, and that's true at work, church, and government. For more on this, go look at 1 Thessalonians 5, 12 and 13 for a little bit on honoring church leaders. Look at Romans 13:1 in relation to honoring government leaders. And in closing, let's just talk for a moment about Saul. Man, Saul's unfaithfulness was both active and passive. He not only did wrong, but he also failed to do right. If you recall, he actively disobeyed by attempting murder, ignoring God's instructions, and seeking guidance from a witch. He passively disobeyed by neglecting to ask God for guidance as he ran the kingdom. Obedience, too, is both passive and active. It is not enough to avoid what is wrong. We need to actively pursue what is right. In the account of 1 Samuel 28, Saul asked the Lord for guidance but received no answer. This account, however, says he did not inquire of the Lord. The answer to this apparent contradiction lies in understanding Saul's motives and the timing of his request to God. His frantic requests came only when he tried everything his own way. He never went to God unless there was nowhere else to turn. When he finally asked, God refused to answer. Saul sought God only when it suited him, and God was not pleased with his stubbornness and rebellion. Church, the lesson for today. May we be people who are actively and passively obedient. May we pursue what is right. And may we be those who inquire of the Lord well before our lives are spinning out of control. Peace be with you. Have a great day.